Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. A lot of people give the advice that you should not get involved in a relationship with a romantic relationship with someone else early in recovery. A lot of people use the guidelines of 6 months to a year. Give yourself 6 months to a year in recovery before you start to enter that relationship. And a lot of people ask why. And I think that one of the biggest reasons is that when we're in our active addiction, we tend to do things based on the feelings that we get from them. So we tend to engage in behaviors like using drugs or alcohol because they make us feel good. And the danger is that in our early recovery, we might do the same thing with relationships. Now, you might be thinking, well, shouldn't a relationship make me feel good? Well, yeah, ultimately it should. But that should not be the only reason you choose to get into a relationship with someone. In fact, getting into a relationship with someone just because they make you feel good can often be a recipe for disaster. So today this came up because I was reading a chapter in Fuck Feelings by Dr. Michael I. Bennett and Sarah Bennett, and they talk about love and how we have this conception that love is only valuable if it's that romance story, sweep you off your feet, you don't see anybody else in the world type of love. And they argue that that type of love is so rare and so unrealistic that it often sets people up for some very potentially catastrophic relationships when that's the only thing they're looking for. Instead, and this goes back to a theme from some of my recent videos, they say that you should focus more on what kind of standards are you looking for in the person that you want to spend time with in your life. Don't look for the way that person makes you feel. Look for the kind of person they are. And that's how you should identify potential lifelong partners. So a couple of quotes that they have. They say, remember the true opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. If you care enough to find someone who's right for you, not someone who makes you feel right, you'll truly find what you need. So looking for someone who's right for you, who compliments you, who has the values that you do, that's not what a lot of us did in our active addiction. And the concern and the reason that people give yourself time before you get into a relationship is that you might still be in that mode where you're looking for someone based purely on the emotions involved in the relationship, rather than whether or not you're a good fit together, whether or not you're like-minded, whether or not you have similar values, that kind of thing. They go on to say, if you're looking for a partner, look beyond attraction. Figure out what qualities of character and personality you require, and be ready to ignore strong attraction if those qualities aren't there. No matter how hot the package or interpersonal sizzle, remember what you've learned about what spoils a relationship, no matter how much you are tempted. And I think this is really important because I have seen this in several people that I've known in recovery, where they get involved in relationships in recovery that look identical to relationships they had in their active addiction. And they think that because they're sober, these relationships and the people that they're involved with, things will turn out differently. And they haven't really changed the way they're engaging in a relationship. They've just changed the fact that they're sober at the time. So the outcome usually is the same. It's the relationship usually ends in some kind of catastrophe. And that's coming from a place of just investing in a relationship solely based on the emotional content of the interaction, rather than looking at the person as a whole and kind of trying to figure out, does this person click with me? And the last quote I'll read from them says, if you concentrate on what you want, not wanting to be wanted, you're more likely to find someone who meets your long-term needs, wants the same things out of life, and won't get on your nerves, at least not too much. So, one of the best decisions that I made in my life, and surprisingly, I made this decision during my active addiction, was to stop looking for a relationship based on the idea that I wanted to be involved with someone who would just sweep me off my feet, and someone who just made me feel like I was floating above the ground. And instead, look for someone who was like-minded, who I enjoyed being around, who I got along with, but also who I saw as a responsible person, who I saw as someone that might be a good mother for children eventually, and might be a good partner for life. And once I started doing that, once I stopped looking for that romantic spark and, oh my God, how, that feeling that I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, and started looking, which had been incredibly elusive my entire life up to that point. I would find people that I fell head over heels for, and then have my heart broken. Then I'd isolate, and I'd find someone I fell head over heels for, and then have my heart broken. And it was just a terrible cycle. But I stopped doing that and started focusing on looking for someone who really just made sense with me. And it wasn't necessarily the person I was most attracted to in the world. It wasn't necessarily the person that, I thought that I would be with, but it was someone who, as I looked at them, I realized this could be a beautiful lifelong relationship, and with someone who has values similar to mine. And I ended up with my wife, who I've been with for now over 13. We've been married 13 years. We've been together almost 20 years. And I never could imagine the kind of beauty of a deep, lasting, long-term relationship like the one that we have. And it's more than I ever could have imagined. And I never would have gotten to that point had I continued to let my just pure emotions drive my search for a partner. I had to take a step back and look at it and say, hey, in spite of emotions, what kind of partner am I really looking for long term? And I had to do a little bit of that analytical work to see that partner was right in front of me. And it was someone that I had considered a friend up to that point, but it really was right in front of me. And so that's one of the reasons that I think it's important for people to not necessarily, I know people in successful relationships who met early in recovery, and they're doing fine after a long period of time. So there's exceptions to every rule. But I think it's important to consider waiting to get into a relationship until you're considering relationships from not a purely analytical point, but from a standards-based point, where you're really thinking about people in terms of do they fit with your personality? Do they meet your needs? Can you meet their needs? And asking yourself those kinds of questions, rather than doing what we did so much in our active addiction and just letting our emotions drive the car and just following our hearts wherever they lead. A lot of us got into a lot of trouble doing that. And a lot of us ended up with some pretty rotten people as a result of doing that. And once you learn how to look more at the personality and more at the fit of the person that you're hoping to be with and the person that you're considering, rather than the attraction, the emotion involved. Once you start to look at things like that, you'll be surprised how often that sense of partnership actually serves as a fertile ground for that emotion and attraction to develop in a way that it never could otherwise. That's all I've got for today. I'll be back here tomorrow with more. Have a good one.